friends. Bethany Braver here. Welcome back to another episode of the Bringing Her Hope podcast. I'm really excited about this episode. Today, we're talking with my friends, Jamie and Landon Baron. Thank you guys so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
We're super excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Absolutely. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourself so our listeners can get to know you?
Go for it.
Jamie and Landon, we will be celebrating. We've been married almost 12 years. Next year or next month will be 12 years. We live out at the Oregon coast now, and we have a 4.5-year-old and an 8-week-old as of yesterday. So we are very much in little kid land. Landon stays at home with our daughters and is raising them. And I work at a small rural hospital doing medical imaging. So we've been out here for a few years, about 3 years now.
About
3.5 years.
Awesome. And on this episode today, everyone that's listening and watching, we're going to talk about we didn't see that coming. Have you ever come to a place in your life, in your story, where there's a pivot, where there's a change, and it wasn't necessarily what you had planned on, what you had hoped for? And so Jamie and Landon have a story similar to that, and they are going to take us on their journey. So thank you guys for taking us along.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we, before we ever got married, both of us wanted to live abroad and serve abroad. The Lord changed my heart radically when I was in high school. I went on a spring break Mexico mission trip, and I was forever changed. Went to college and, kind of did the 4-year thing. And then actually went to East Africa, Rwanda, on a 2-week mission trip. And that was life-changing again. And I went back the next year for 3 months by myself in the middle of Africa. My pastor at the time was like, what am I going to do with it? I don't know, but this is what I'm supposed to do. It just kind of was always something that was a really, really big dream of mine to do that with my husband. And Landon actually grew up, his parents were missionaries in South America in the late 80s. And so he like 4 years of his childhood were moving between Peru and Bolivia.
Wow. And
that was obviously transformational at that stage in life. And then you've done short-term trips and things like that. But again, that same desire of like, that was like, to put it bluntly, it was the biggest desire of our heart. We didn't even know. I mean, over and above having children, over and above ever owning a home, over and above anything else, it was the biggest desire of our heart. In fact, at our wedding, his dad made a speech and was like, I think the biggest question for them is going to be whether they go to Africa or South America, because everybody knew everybody knew that that's just what we kind of wanted to do with our marriage and with our life together. So
it was our biggest goal.
Yeah.
Finances aside, all of that stuff. It was like, this is what we want to do.
Yeah. So we got introduced to our friends, the ministry down in Nicaragua in 2013.
Yeah.
2013. And we just went on vacation, kind of introduced them. And at the time we were looking for a place for our church at the time to kind of serve internationally. And we met the Busbys, met the Open Hearts team, and it just kind of clicked. But we also were in a process of kind of preparing our life. So, paying off student loans and just kind of like getting things ready to be able to go overseas and not have things that were kind of, I don't know, distracting us, for lack of a better way to say it.
Distraction.
And so we took a few short-term teams, kind of just created that relationship in short-term teams over the next few years. And in fact, at the time I was even training to be an MRI tech, I felt like that was really important for like the next thing that the Lord would have us to do, which obviously I didn't know how I was going to use MRI in Nicaragua, but I was like, I don't know. I just think we're supposed to do this. And so that, there was a time frame there where our biggest heart's desire, and we had been invited actually. From the time we were invited to the time we moved was about 2.5 years. Wow. So there was this 2.5-year span of like, we just want to be there. Like, can we just go? And really feeling like that timing wasn't right, which if anybody has ever tried to launch into anything that is a big life change like that, the timing and waiting is so hard. It is so challenging to remain, I don't know, positive, I guess is the right word.
When she was up, I'd be down. When I was up, or when I was down, she'd be up, and we kind of balanced each other out. But we did have this one moment where we were both down. And we were depressed, and we're like, what are we doing?
I think we were literally laying on our floor crying.
She was on the
Quite
floor.
literally.
I was on the couch, and we were crying. We called our friend down in Nicaragua because we knew we were supposed to. We knew we were going, and we had an end date. But we just like, why
It
do
was
we
still
have to wait?
like 9 months out. It was still, there were still things that we felt like the Lord had us waiting for. And
yeah. And he prayed for us and encouraged us that, you know, this is all part of the process. You don't want to pull the trigger too early, because if you don't have everything lined up, you know, and he's like, there's people that the Lord's going to bring into the fold that you have no idea about. He's working on the back plan and the different ministries that might come be a part of what's going on that we don't even know about. So he's like, just know that this is part of it. And there's like the beautiful part of essentially being broken while we're waiting, you know what I mean? And it's painful, and you don't understand it, but at the same time, you look back and you're like, that was 100% the Lord.
Yeah, we needed that time.
Working us out, right?
Yeah, we needed that time.
Yeah.
So all that to say, anybody who was at church the day that we like launched in Nicaragua, just know there were a lot of tears when we were prayed over. There were a lot of tears that preceded that. But so we launched Nicaragua in April of 2016, and it was such an interesting experience because we were stoked, but then all of our friends and family here were like, oh, bummed, you know? And so you're kind of like consoling them because you're like, yeah, I'm sorry. But in your heart, you're like, no, I have been waiting for this like since I was 14 years old. Are you kidding me? I'm so excited right now.
And come be a part of it. You know, like we're, you know, technology and everything allows us to be in contact anytime we want. And so we were more excited to bridge that ministry with our friends and family back home, you know, pulling from the talents and things that their life experiences that could help push forward the ministry down there or bless others that just don't have the capabilities. So, I mean, really, that's our life calling.
Yeah, that's what we didn't know that, but we learned that over the next few years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we launched down there April 2016, which if you're going to move to Nicaragua, don't move in April.
Oh, good to know.
Worst time of the year, hottest month of the year. And our friends were like, our friends that we work with down there were like, you're crazy. Are you sure? I'm like, look, it's never going to be this bad again. Okay. Yeah. Like it's never going to be this bad again.
So that's the argument point, is going in April.
Yeah, that's true. Like go in when it's the worst, and then it'll only improve from there. Exactly. You know, I didn't know the language. They drive on the same side of the road, but it's totally different kind of driving. It's just insane. You're like literally looking for donkey carts and people walking across, and like big semi trucks that just cut in. I mean, it's just insanity. But really fun as well. I don't know how to say that.
Organized chaos.
Yeah. But so we moved down there, and it was like everything. It was really everything that we hoped it would be.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, we got to host short-term mission teams, which we love. We love people.
We just love relationships.
Yeah. And then we were helping develop Ruby Ranch, which is an adventure camp for kids. So it's like 550 acres that we're just developing into this camp facility, because a lot of kids in Nicaragua in general, but specifically in the cities, specifically in Managua, they don't ever get to play. They don't have no space. It's like inner city, like LA or whatever, you know, you could live 2 miles from the beach, but never go to the beach because that's not your block. Right. And it's the same in Managua, where these kids are forced to work super, super young because everybody needs them to work. They're also in really desperate situations where families, I mean, the one community that in particular, it was not uncommon for the parents to prostitute their children out to go through the dumpster. Like seriously, like a garbage truck would pull up to the dump, and in order to like make an income, these families would go through the garbage to see if there was anything they could recycle, or they could reuse, or they could, you know, sell or whatever, or they could just use themselves. And so it was not uncommon for a family member to literally line up children and say, which one do you want?
Oh my gosh.
And then so they're literally trading their children for trash. I mean, that's not, there's just lots of dysfunction and lots of chaos and lots of really, really horrible things. And so what we wanted to do was give those kids, like, we can't fix that whole system, right? Like there's lots of things happening there. But what we can do is create a relationship with those kids, or create a relationship. In our case, we were creating the relationship with the organizations that were working in the dump.
Yeah.
So maybe Bethany, you go down and you're actually working with those kids every single day. And then we meet you and we're like, Bethany, we have this place where y'all can come.
All expenses paid.
In fact, we would like fundraise for the expenses of it.
Yep.
You all come and just be for the day. And these kids, a lot of them like rode bikes, knew how to ride a horse or ride bikes or whatever, but they've never done it just for fun. They've never like just ridden a bike down a hill and like to see how fast they could go just for fun, an open space and eating a really good meal. And, we have this giant, really kind of backwoods water slide situation.
You're up and we're just explaining this piece. I'm like, oh
yeah, I know. So it's so all that to say, it was so fun. And then we got to be a part of a really dynamic prayer ministry where we would take the short-term mission teams to the prayer house and get to pray over them. And the Lord just showed up in incredible ways, and people getting healed from things, emotional trauma, physical trauma, getting like calls over their life that the Lord it was just such a sweet time of like seeing the Lord work in so many ways, in ways that he wants to work all the time. And he does all the time, but it was like a pressure cooker. And so it was really, really a really sweet experience for us. And, later that year, we decided, to try to have a kid. We were kind of like, well, we'll kind of figure it out. I actually told Landon, I think we'll know within the first 6 months of living in Nicaragua, whether we want to have children of our own or not. Yeah. That was still such a question. Like literally Nicaragua moving abroad was so much bigger of a dream for us. Like that was the thing. And then it was like, oh yeah, maybe we'll have a kid. Anyway, so we actually decided to try, and our daughter Scout was born the next year, and she's a huge gift. Like the Lord just totally blessed us with her. So she was born down there actually in 2017. So we were there in 2016, worked that summer, worked in 2017. Did a ton of networking and master plan for the branch and just like a ton of stuff that was, again, just all really, and don't get me wrong, not every single second was awesome. Let's be real.
Oh, no.
Let's be real. Not every single second was awesome. There were a lot of hard things.
You remember the sexy things more than the hard, arduous, boring.
We have to remind ourselves of that and not romanticize it.
Yeah.
It's like giving birth. It's like, you kind of have to get it. So you'll do it again at some point.
Yeah.
100%. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So Scout was born, and she was, she was born in November. And so we actually put off coming back to the United States until the next spring, because remember, April in Nicaragua is miserable. So we're like, let's take our newborn out of Nicaragua and miss April. Darn. So we did that. And in that time, while we were gone, there had been like a forest fire on the Caribbean side of the country. And the Caribbean side is really, I would say the situation there's pretty desperate.
It's pretty remote from its own country. It's like it's kind of its own thing. The East Coast wants to be its own country, and the West Coast kind of treats it as like,
and Managua is on the west side of the country. And so a lot of resources and a lot of development and those kinds of things exist around Managua. The further you get away, the harder it is to access those things. And so there was a big forest fire that the government didn't manage well, and it kind of went crazy. And then sort of the thing that sparked the civil unrest was that the government said that they were going to increase taxes and decrease Social Security benefits. And it's essentially like Social Security and just benefits
retirement,
to like
what little they have.
Right. And then to also benefits to lower income families, which is obviously a lot in Nicaragua, but they were going to decrease those things and increase taxes. Wow. And people just lost it. They were like, no, this is not going to go well. And so while we were actually back here in the United States visiting family and friends and our church and all those things, introducing Scout to everybody, the country kind of exploded, might be a little bit dramatic word, but kind of erupted in this civil unrest. And the country has a fairly volatile history within the last handful of decades with, they had a revolution in the late 70s, like early 80s. So it's not that far removed. There's people that live in that country that went through the revolution, that fought in the revolution and have injuries still from the revolution. And so people kind of went up in arms, and they it kind of created this environment that our friends that live down there were like, hey, you guys you're already in Oregon. Things are a little weird down here. You might extend your trip a little bit. We're like, okay, yeah, we'll extend in like 10 days. It'll chill out, So we stayed in Oregon. We're like, more time at the coast. That's fine. Stay in Oregon for 10 more days. And then we get on an airplane and we go back. And mind you, at this point, our daughter is 5 months old.
Mm.
Yeah. So she's 5 months old. So she's like doing pretty good, but she's still 5 months old. So we go back and things are weird, but where we lived, it wasn't like in the middle of all of that. So, we noticed things, but we could still kind of do normal life-ish, like if we had to go to the hospital for a doctor's appointment or something, the hospital that we went to was across town. And so if you had to do that, in fact, I remember one time we went over there for a doctor's appointment and we were driving, and I used to sit in the back seat so Scout wouldn't yell and Landon would just drive and it was fine. And we're driving and I'm like, we drove by this university and I'm like, man, why are all those people standing right there? That's a lot. That's a lot of guys standing by that fence. So we go to the doctor's appointment, right?
Yeah.
We come back the same way. The whole thing's shut down.
Oh, wow.
Like they were like, as we were driving through, they were preparing to shut down that road in an act of civil disobedience. And that night, that university became kind of the epicenter of the revolution is a kind of strong word in that sense, but it kind of
revolution.
Yeah, it kind of became the epicenter that night.
Yeah.
So we just missed it, and there was increase in kind of opportunistic crime. There was an increase in mortar fire and gunfire and things like that again they were kind of and they were kind of removed from us, but then they kind of started to get closer to us, and we it was just getting closer and closer. And so we were back for 5 weeks?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And in that time, somebody that we knew got robbed at Machete Point in broad daylight at a place that I had been at the day before.
Wow.
And I'm not a big person. Like if they want to rob me at Machete Point, like take my stuff, here you go, but
but now we have a baby.
So in my mind as a new mother, I'm like, what if my baby had been in the truck? What if they had wanted to steal my truck and my baby's in my truck? And with the way things were going, there's nobody to call. This is the thing.
Yeah.
You can hear that and be like, well, you call the police.
Nope.
You don't call the police. Like you don't call the ambulance, because there are ambulances, but there's like 5. And there are police officers, but there's like a handful of them. Like you just don't call. And then there's also a bigger dynamic there of who is in charge of the police and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
we won't go into the details.
No, we won't go into the details about that.
We don't know who's going to be listening to this.
So you don't call anybody. It's really like, you really kind of have to take care of things yourself. And for us, that was a moment of like, okay, that's interesting. And then kind of the thing that really kind of sealed the deal for us as far as, this isn't a great place to be right now with our infant, was she rolled off of our bed and landed on, and it wasn't super tall, but tall enough. She rolled off the bed. We were super tired, taking a nap, basically passed out because we hadn't been sleeping at night because of the mortar fire. She rolls off the bed, knocks the wind out of herself, but all we hear is that sound.
Yeah.
And then we pick her up and she's blue. And I'm like, did she choke on something? Did she, and come to find out she just knocked the wind out of herself and she was okay. So we turned her over, I have a medical background. I did like the CPR, like, is there something in her, and she was okay, but she's kind of whimpering. So we called her pediatrician, and who we love dearly. And he was like, here are the things to watch out for. If any of these things happen, go ahead and bring her in. And I'm like, okay, would you meet us at the hospital, or would we just go to the ER? He's like, you would just go to the ER. I'm not going to be able to make it in tonight. And just so you know, they have the Messiah Highway closed, and they have the South Highway closed, and they were talking about closing the Messiah Highway. So those are the 2 ways that we could get our 5-month-old infant to emergency medical care.
And that's like on a good day is 30 minutes.
Right.
With barricades, because there's a lot of roadblocks, and fortunately there were people that would be sympathetic
Yeah, they would have
to
let us go by,
like
but it would have,
civilians.
but it would have just increased the time that it would have
Right.
taken.
It would have probably taken an hour,
for us to get
driving
over there.
through people's yards and like, I mean, I say that and
But
it sounds sarcastic, but it's not.
It's
Literally, you would
literal.
just go around and make a way. So yeah, so that wasn't even an option at that point.
So for us, that was kind of a moment where we, it's hard. I had somebody actually ask me a few months later how that kind of messed with me, knowing, having this huge feeling of this huge call on our life to go and be in Nicaragua, and then having that change. And how did that mess with my faith was basically what the person was asking. And I didn't have a good answer. I was like, I don't know. I just knew in that moment that this little baby is in my care. Like the Lord gave us that baby. And that was what that she was who we were supposed to make the decisions for, basically. And I think that some people would come at me with their theology about that, and that's fine. But in that moment, we just had complete peace. When I kind of said, we can't do this right now. When I said that to Landon, we both just had peace. Like it was like, once that was out, there was peace of like, okay, no, we need to go back to the United States for a little bit. And so that's what we did. And that was actually the plan, was just to go back. And we kind of realized that we wouldn't have done very well with like, we'll go back for 2 weeks and kind of see how it goes and whatever. So we're like, you know what, we'll just call it a furlough. We'll go back for 6 months. It'll be okay. We'll figure it out. Let the dust settle, and we can just kind of restart. And so luckily we were in a home and in a place that was really secure as far as like the neighborhood is concerned. And our friends were going to stay there. And so they could kind of check in on things. So we kind of prepared our house. This was the other kind of cool thing. We prepared our house so that if anybody needed to use it, needed to stay there, they could. And so the house that we were renting. And so we kind of put our personal things away, brought some things with us, gave a bunch of things away because we're like, we're going to, it was actually really cool to bless our friend that way. And the guy who like does gardening in the little area, we gave him a whole bunch of things. And anyway, so we came back for 6 months. We're like, we'll go through the end of the year. So that was June. We'll go through the end of the year and just kind of relaunch after that, barring anything unforeseen. Well, that was the part that was unforeseen.
Yep.
Yeah. So we
he used that as a vehicle to get us where he wanted us to be.
For now.
Yeah. And we saw our perspective. And of course we're looking through a different lens than what the Lord sees. We obviously have very limited vision. So he used that to get us back here. And then while we were here, essentially started closing doors, opening doors, changing our heart in a sense. Our heart for Nicaragua still is there. Obviously, it always will be. Our daughter was born there. It's always going to be a pivotal, like a special place in our life, right? But realizing that that chapter was closing as far as full time was concerned, was a process, and it didn't happen in that 6 months either. It was. I mean, we still have days where we're like, how did this happen? How are we living on the Oregon coast? We just built a house. What?
We have 2 kids now.
Yeah. It's just crazy how the Lord orchestrates your footsteps. But
by the end of that year, by the end of 2018, there were some things that happened that changed in our family, in our kind of nuclear family, and not us, but like, our extended family, that we felt we needed to be back this way for. And then there was also a job available out here at the coast. And we had thought about living at the coast. It was like, do we move to the coast or do we move abroad? Like those were the questions that we had. And there's kind of never jobs out here. And I've realized since working out here, it's because everybody stays here till they retire. Usually if you get a job out here, you're just committed, or you're not committed to it, but you're like rooted in it. And so there was a job available for what I do for MRI. Remember back to the beginning of the story where I felt like I really needed to go to school for MRI. So there was a job for MRI. And so I was overqualified for it. I applied, I interviewed, and it was kind of a nice way to interview because I was like, I don't really need the job. I actually had a job in Eugene, like my friend that I used to work with at Slocum Orthopedics. Believe it or not, I actually texted him from Ruby Ranch like 2 days before we were going to fly back to Nicaragua. And I was like, we have a joking relationship. And I said, do you want some time off this summer? I'm going to be back in the area. And he was like, actually, come talk to me. I'm like, okay, we'll be back we're back on Tuesday. I was like, I'll come see you on Wednesday. And so by Wednesday afternoon, I had my job back. And that was just, again, the Lord just totally blessing that. And like giving us, we needed that part-time income. We still had support, but we kind of needed the part-time income as well. And I kind of, as a personality trait, needed something else to be focusing on. But yeah, so we moved back, and for 6 months we lived in one room in my dad's house, which we're super grateful that was an option. But again, like you can look at where we're at now and think, oh, well, they just moved back from Nicaragua and now they live in, where they do. And no, there was 6 months of 3 people living in one room, and my dad has a lot of antiques, and we have a newborn, we have a toddler. So, there's really a period of kind of waiting and working through all of the things and mourning and grieving and all that stuff. And so we moved. I got the job. Again, that was a God thing, because I interviewed and I said, this might be a game changer. I actually can't commit I can't actually come out there till about February. Oh, wow. I interviewed back in October, and I was like, wow. I have a commitment to my job right now. And then we'd actually be moving back from being abroad. So like, we need to go and get our things and like physically, like be like done moving. Yeah. I was like, so I really can't, first week of February is about when I'm available for you. Yeah. And that worked. Interestingly enough, that worked out for them. It's the job that I've had since we moved out here. And so in January of 2019, we went back to Nicaragua for a few weeks to kind of like tie up loose ends and finish moving through things. And then we came out to the coast, and, we, like you said, we did not see that coming. Like when my daughter was born, I was looking back with our second daughter just being born. I was kind of looking back through things, little mementos from when Scout was born. And I literally was writing about like her life and growing up in Nicaragua, and like how excited I was that she was going to like, she's kind of getting the best of both worlds, and how she was going to have this cool experience where she learned Spanish, and she just like, it's just a different experience. And, that was really what we anticipated doing. I mean, we were looking at buying property. We were looking at all of the different things that we could do to live life there. Yeah. And, so I would say the year of 2019 was really just a year of keeping my head above water. I don't know about you, but my head above water as far as emotionally and mentally, and really mourning that loss. Yeah. Because, while we don't really know at this point, we're like, we don't know what we're doing. We're just doing the next thing, this has shown us that we have no idea what's happening. Yeah. But it was like a death. It was like mourning the death of that dream that was so much bigger than anything else that we had dreamt before, and, but to, I think I said this in like the little thing that I sent you was, I don't think we would be prepared for here had we not gone to Nicaragua. Mm-hmm. Like where we live, the community, and also just how we know that we are called to operate in our life. Yeah. As far as like our passion and our excitement comes when we can connect, when we can connect resources to needs. Yeah. So whether that is, you're an architect and this person over here, and he's an architect, and I'm like, oh, you should be my friend Bethany. They're like, you would love her and she would do so well. Or, quite literally physical needs. I need $100 from somebody because we need to buy a bed for this mama. Like, yep. We love those moments. Mm-hmm. And we didn't realize that was the thing that the Lord had really put in us and on our hearts. And we got to see it a lot. When you're on the ground in a developing country, you get to see the need really acutely. And then you get to say, and let's be real, it's fun. Like, it is so fun. There's something that fills up in you that you get to say, this person needs this, fresh water thing, or they need this bed, or they need, something so simple. And then you get to go and deliver that to them. Yeah, man, that is like, there's nothing better. So I will say, just being at this part where I'm like just writing emails and like, asking for things, I'm like, well, this isn't as fun, but that doesn't mean it doesn't need to happen. And that doesn't mean, and our friends and ministry partners down there, they're stinking exhausted.
Yeah.
They're stinking exhausted. They have sustained trauma after trauma after trauma since we left. And so they don't have the energy.
They're just surviving.
Yeah. They don't have the energy to be like they'll be like, hey, we're fundraising for beds.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And we kind of take it and like connect and send people. And, we talk about like the networking part of it and how we that was part of what we did. Well, we connected friends of ours from here in Florence to Ruby Ranch. They came down actually right around the time that we moved.
Yeah.
They came down on a 1-month trip. They like fell in love with it. A year later, they moved. They're still there. We've since moved back. They're still there. And our friend Todd has a background in construction and tile work. Do you know which phase of Ruby Ranch we were at? We were constructing cabins and building bathhouses. So we needed to do tile work. I mean, he literally used to own a tile business, right?
Wow.
And then his wife, Kristen, my good friend Kristen, is she homeschools her kids, but she's also a really awesome photographer. Mm-hmm. And Ruby Ranch at this point needs good content to tell the story. She's a beautiful storyteller. Yeah. So we needed her specific skill set to propel this vision and this heart forward. And they have a huge heart for camps. They have a huge heart for like the things that they're getting to do now. Mm-hmm. And to be really honest, we don't have those skill sets.
Yeah.
But you know what? The Lord used those connections. In fact, we just messaged with somebody this morning who was like, thank you so much for introducing us to this family. There's another family that moved down from Florence at the same time. And we introduced them to our friends that were like, you guys are like, you live 20 minutes away from each other. You probably like each other. Your kids are in the same age group. They've become like best friends, like lifelong friends. And they've even said, we would not still be here had you not introduced us to this other family.
Yeah.
Just saying you guys are cool and you will like each other, but the way that the Lord works and does that, and so I think at this point, we're just excited to see how the Lord does those same cool things where we are now. The coast, there's a lot of surfers at the coast. Where there's great surf? Nicaragua. Yeah. And you don't have to fight for the waves.
And most of them are contractors.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go build some houses and go surfing,
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it's really cool how you don't, I think the bigger thing for me that I've always reflected on is that like, I don't have to have every single skill set. I don't have to have every single answer. In fact, just yesterday I got encouraged, like I need to stay in my lane. Mm-hmm. I am who the Lord made me to be. Yeah. I'm supposed to do that authentically. I'm supposed to do that in a real, honest way. And then I'm just supposed to invite people along to partner with what the Lord wants to do.
Yep.
And really that's what I think that's been the redeeming, we were actually discussing the redemption word and we're like, man, what that kind of throws me off a little bit. But I was like, no, but that's the redemptive part of this is that, we lost a huge dream. That was really hard.
Yeah.
And yet the redemptive part of it is we saw it, we know what it takes. And now we have these other relationships and these other people that the Lord wants to use, and he wants to change their life.
Yep.
He wants to change the life of their kids by getting them to a place like Nicaragua, by introducing them to people that they can serve. I mean, that's life-changing stuff. And so I think for us, that's kind of been the redemptive part of it, is knowing that it is not at all what we expected to be doing in the year of 2022, but it's still good and the Lord's still using it, and we're still encouraged by it. So
well, and I think what's so beautiful about the whole story is when the circumstances changed, you could have taken two postures. One, well, this just sucks, so we're not going to serve anymore. Or two, oh wait, Lord, you're just asking if we're willing. Or you're not saying necessarily you're going to line up every detail exactly like we want, but are you willing? And you guys have this posture of willingness that is contagious. I have to ask you, there's lots of people that I've gotten to interview where there's a husband and wife and they get to do ministry together, and they get to some places where, one is hearing one thing from the Lord and one is hearing another thing from the Lord. Did you guys struggle with that at all? Or did you always feel like there was an alignment with when the next step was supposed to happen or what that looked like?
100% alignment.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Usually one or the other, and then the one or the other would wait.
Yeah,
until the Lord reaffirmed or confirmed. And then let's say the Lord spoke to me. I was like feeling this heavy, like really this is what we need to be doing, but I'm not going to mention it to Jamie because I need the Lord to change her heart, speak to her.
Yep.
And then I would wait, and the confirmation was her bringing it to me.
So good.
And
kind of like a fleece, throwing a fleece out there.
And we ended up in Nicaragua that way. In fact, I went down there. When we went down there, it was between the Lord and us. And all we said was, okay, if this is where you want us to be, we need to be, and this is what I said to the Lord, we need to be officially invited by the family to be a part of this ministry because it's a family ministry. And people would go down there and they'd be a part of all this thing. And it's a big emotional tug. And there'd be huge emotional responses. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to serve with you guys. And over the course of 20 years, they've heard it over and over and over again. And it kind of deflates those words. So when people say that, they're like, okay, I'm excited. I hope this is true. And a lot of times it wouldn't happen. And so they kind of, when people said that, they just kind of, okay, it's that mountaintop experience. And then they go home and reality sets in. And so part of our fleece was to the Lord, we need to be officially invited. And on one of our trips down there, is that the trip that we sent the team home and we stayed there for a couple of days?
No, that was in 2014. We got it. Yeah.
There was a trip before that where our friend, him and I were just walking at the end of a day, walking and talking. And he's like, we had a family meeting and we unanimously decided that we wanted to invite you to be a part of our ministry down here. And I stopped in my footprints and I was like,
buddy, I put that fleece out.
And I was like, what are you saying? And he's like, we are officially inviting you to be a part of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you need to talk to Jamie right now and tell her exactly what you just told me. And he was like, oh, okay. And when he told her, we both got really excited, obviously, and then we shared with them what we had talked to the Lord about.
Because we had, to backstory a little bit, we had gone twice in 2013. The first time was in February, and it was just kind of like a little scouting trip for short-term mission trip the next year. And then we actually went back. A cousin of mine was doing an internship there in September. And so I was like, let's go back to Nicaragua. I have airline credit. We can take some time off of work. So we went for another week. So our family or our ministry partners, the Busbys, we had seen them both times and we had kind of discussed things and kind of would you need help? And, what would that look like? And they were really honest with us about that, what that would look like, which was, I really appreciated. So there had been a little bit of a conversation over those months. And even between, us going in the fall of 2013 and then taking a team in the summer of 2014, there were still more discussions. So that's kind of where that invitation, where that idea even came from, was that we had expressed interest and but we again wanted to be officially invited. And so, it's not to say that every single moment of working together was great.
Right.
Don't get that.
He's like, wait a minute, where were you?
No, but here's the best part. It was not easy. It's a really stressful situation to move to another country, to learn where do you even get groceries, right? And then put that to compound that, the vehicle that they let us borrow until we got our own vehicle. The front seat was broken, so it wouldn't move forward. I am I don't want to be at home. I'm more of a homebody now that I have kids, but I didn't want to be at home at the time. So I'm I want to go and I want to do something. So I want to see things. We're here, Yeah. Well, I couldn't physically drive the truck because it's a manual and I'm too short. So I needed Landon to drive me around, which was messing with my I can do everything myself mentality. And so, I don't think I'll ever forget this little intense fellowship moment.
Yeah.
I was I feel trapped and you're not helping me. It was just, that's within the first 2 weeks of living there. So, there were definitely moments like that, but that was actually something that we figured out that we really enjoyed too. That again was part of that mourning process, was we love working together. We love being around one another. And when we moved back to the States and I went back to a full-time job and Lana was home with Scout, that was awesome because they were home together.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, not only am I not in the country that I want to live in, I'm not doing the thing that really sets my soul on fire, but also now I'm away from my family for 40 hours a week. And it was just like, oh my gosh, what is happening? So, those are all the adjustments and stuff. But yeah, when a friend of ours a long time ago said that a lot of times the Holy Spirit sounds like his wife. And that's kind of something that we've always, we've found to be true.
Gotcha.
Oh boy, sounded pretty arrogant right there.
Most times that's the way that it works.
No, but God, that's the thing. But God, and we're excited to be in the community we're in. We're excited to be that bridge between whatever, connecting people, and we honestly have no idea what's around the next corner. But we've learned that we just say, okay, let's do it. And
keep moving forward in the things that we have peace in. That's been our kind of litmus test, if you will, is if there's an opportunity in front of us, is there peace about it?
Yeah.
And if there's not, then we don't move forward with it. And if there is, then we move forward with it, or we wait until there is peace. Whatever that looks like.
So good. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to share your story. I know that it's going to impact a ton of people, encourage them also in the waiting as they're waiting on what God is going to do next in their lives. And also just having a heart that's postured for pivot if needed be, and still being willing to serve wherever you're at. So thank you for that. How can our listeners and our watchers, viewers connect with you guys?
My social media, my Instagram handle is Jamie, and it's 2 underscores. Okay. So Jamie Baron, Jamie __ Baron. Landon.
Mine's Lando Commando 78.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Anyway, we need to change that at some point.
Apparently I need to change it.
We had a website when we were in Nicaragua, and so that's landjbaron.com. Okay. We haven't updated it in forever. I'll just be really honest with you. But if you wanted to go back and read, I tended to write a lot of blog posts when we were down there and trying to do updates. And then we actually have a family Instagram handle that we used a lot when we were down there that's still active, which is at @Barons. In that one, if you wanted to see photos and stuff and kind of our story from when we were down there. But again, we kind of don't use that anymore. So it's not very updated, but those are a couple options. Awesome. Or if you want to see our life now on the North Oregon coast, follow us now. Perfect. Yeah.
That sounds good. And if you are driving or if you're doing laundry and multitasking while you're listening or watching this, we'll have all those links in the show notes. Well, thank you again, friends, just for your
thank you, Bethany.
For your faithfulness. I appreciate you. All right.
Thank you.